All right, we're back. It's Dennis Gillan and Jessica Seel. We call it It's a Tough Subject. You know why we call it that, Jessica?
Because it is a tough subject, Dennis,
Spot
that a
on.
lot of people don't understand, right?
Spot on. We talk about grief. That's a tough subject. And a very, very specialized grief that we went through was a loss from suicide, which comes with its own set of baggage, which we covered a lot in season 1 and 2. I have a gripe today. Can I use today to rant? By the way,
Yes. It's
thank you.
Monday. It's after a holiday. Of course you
Mon
can.
It's Monday after the 4th of July when we did this, so it's what is it? July 7th. When we recorded this, we had crazy good weekends, and it's back to work, and it's back
Well,
to
sort
reality,
of.
but sort of. Yeah, you're still off. You got a vacation day. Thank you for coming into the studio.
Of
Here's the
course.
dealio right before the holiday, right before, like Wednesday or Thursday, I forgot when I found out, but an old friend's son died in a motorcycle accident. And again, we talk about all kinds of grief. Gone is gone. It doesn't matter how. And what chapped me a little bit, a lot of it, one, the loss. Way too young, 19 years old, but sucks. Second thing that chapped me is somewhere on the internet, there was a picture of the young man deceased. We'll leave it at that. And as a parent, that drove me through the wall that someone snapped a photo and posted. I don't know where it was, news media, whatever, but it sent me back to a couple of years ago when we had a former Miss America die by suicide. This is public knowledge. Her name is Chesley Chris. I've seen her mom speak, April Simpkins. She's a ambassador for NAMI, and she came to the South Carolina NAMI meeting. She's spoken about this. But when that young lady was deceased, a picture was taken and it was run in the paper, a large paper. And it doesn't matter large or small or an individual Facebook account. We've lost a little bit of dignity when we start doing crap like that.
I
I
agree.
hit you. There you go. 2 words from Jessica. I agree. That's today's podcast. We're good.
I think, well, the whole dignity, I mean, let's be honest, it just kind of correlates with, it's all about the ratings. It's all about as many people as you can get to like your picture to see it. That's what's important to folks. And they forget about there's a human being and a family that's attached to that human being. And it's disrespectful.
You nailed it. It's like we practice this. You know exactly where I'm going. It's about clicks. It's clicks. It's views. So a couple years ago, I attended a journalist breakout session about the new media and how, like if you and I were both reporters, and I did an incredible story on like elderly abuse in nursing homes, and I just did a really good investigative journalistic report, and nobody read it. But yet you did a report on like, cruelty to animals, and you put pictures of mauled dogs and cats on your
Oh,
just right. And you got a lot of clicks. So the editor will come by the desk and say, Dennis, hey, great article about the elderly. Guess what? Only 400 people read it. And then he would turn to you and say, hey, Jessica, that story you did about, those animals being abused with the photos. Yeah, you got 1,000 hits. Here's your bonus. Dennis, you get squat. And it's just where we are. And
I
it's
mean,
awful.
I have to admit, I'm embarrassed to admit, but I was young. I'll just preface it that way. Years ago, and I mean before the internet, there was a video that went around, when you had VHS tapes, we were young, you're a kid. Why people want to see death and like horrific pictures, I'm not sure. But, you know, I was one of those people at that time, and there was a video called Faces of Death. I don't know if you remember it.
Oh, I remember that.
And
And it
now
was
I look
video.
back, yes, and I'm like, why on the earth? Why did I watch it? It's like you have to do it. It's like, watching horror movies, but it's real. But why on earth was that such a popular video? During it was like a cult classic, and it did show scenes of death, of suicide, of other type, horrible, horrible, horrible things. Why do people want to watch people jumping from the Twin Towers? Do you remember that? I
Oh, that
mean,
was awful.
we as a society are addicted to as much, as many terrible things as we can see for some reason. And I can't explain it as a human. But I have to remember as I got older and saw those, I thought, that was somebody's family that may
Yeah.
have, there are people that get in trouble all the time. And there's actually a law, I feel like, that was passed in some states. There was a girl that got killed in a car accident, and there were brutal pictures. And they were saying they were doing
Oh,
it to prove to young children or younger people why you shouldn't do certain things. But I mean, I can't even like fathom that being someone I love and people seeing it and liking it,
yeah.
hitting a like button.
Yeah, yeah. And it's, think about how many people watch it and didn't hit the like button, but still watched it. we're not alone in our outrage, especially when it comes to a death by a suicide. We're not alone. There is such a negligence on the part of journalists when reporting suicides that there's actually a website called Reporting on Suicide. There's an actual website, like a group of people said, this is what you need to do. And it's been, generally accepted practices. Like there's a couple things you don't do. One of them, we try to stay away from the word commit. We've spoken about that before. That's like rule number one. Died by suicide's easier. But did you know you don't describe? I'm going to look at this. You avoid, and I'm literally looking at the report. You could download a 2-pager on this reportingonsuicide.org. If you want to Google it, we'll put it in the show notes. You avoid describing or depicting the method and location of the suicide. Don't do it. Don't tell them how or where. What happened was you remember a couple of years ago, there was a Japanese forest where people were dying by suicide.
Yes, yes,
And there was some films
yes.
being done. Report the death. What they should do, journalists, I'm talking to you and anybody who has a Facebook account. Report the death as a suicide. Keep information about the location general.
Now, some people will say that they don't want to report it as a suicide. Part of me understands the concept that they're feeling, but the other part of me is you're furthering the narrative that these people are bad. Any death is not great. You don't say the same thing about a motorcycle accident. It's almost like it's a 4-letter word that people don't want to use because they're afraid of the shame that it would bring that person or the family.
Yeah, and with a death by suicide, we're really in the postvention piece, again, postvention's prevention, we're trying to stop future occurrences even after one's occurred. So the suicide contagion, you'll hear that contagion. Is
Mhm.
it contagious? Well, if someone dies and they glorify or they make the person a martyr, you run the risk. Yes, you're going to honor the person and
Mhm.
talk about their life. You got to be careful. It's a fine line we all walk when reporting on this. Yeah, like you just said, you want the cause to be noted sometimes because we want to address the issue head on.
Right.
Died by suicide. I remember my poor parents, God bless them, they buried 2 sons to suicide. When my older brother Mark died, we picked a charity that was not even related to suicide. It was like an orphanage. We didn't know what the hell to do. My
Yeah.
parents, I'm like, well, well, probably some didn't even exist, but it was like, so if you read it, you're like, oh, this guy was an orphan, which was not the case. All right, that's what you avoid. Here's another one for you. Do not share the content of a suicide note.
That's personal.
Yeah, seems like a
That's
no-brainer, right?
somebody's heart, right? You shouldn't share any personal note that anyone writes you
You
or
could
you have or find, diary, whatever. Same concept.
you report that a note was found and is under review, and let the family review it and let them do with it what they want to do with it.
Mhm.
Describe personal details. Another thing you should avoid, describing personal details about the person who died. And they say keep
Mm,
information about the person general. That's hard when it's high profile.
yes, and I think there again, I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, that's an avoid. You got to let people know who the person was.
I mean, part of my biggest healing was forgetting about the actual act, but remembering who my dad was. That's
Yeah.
been the greatest thing for me. So I'm not sure what they mean by that. Maybe they're talking about their mental health state at the time. I don't know.
That might be it. That might be. Let's
Yeah.
go with that. The other thing you should avoid, according to this list on reportingonsuicide.org, is presenting suicide as a common or acceptable response to hardship. And what they recommend is report that coping skills, support, and treatment work for most people who have thoughts about suicide.
Okay.
No argument there.
Nope. That makes
Just
sense.
makes sense. And then, they always do. And a lot of journalists, here we are piling on them, but a lot of people they'll preface the article. The following article talks about suicide. So if anyone is, I want to say content warning. I almost said trigger warning, but we're trying to get away from saying trigger warning. I don't know why.
Mhm.
Trigger, guns, whatever. 54% of all suicides are with a firearm. I don't know, but it's content warning. So they'll give you a content warning in the beginning, and then they'll follow up at the end with resource.
You know what I'm wondering as you say this?
What are you wondering? It's all
They said, the they, and I'm sure they're researchers, and I work around that and have, and 100% understand that. I often wonder when we have these lists, and not that a lot of it is not 100% true, but wondering if they didn't get any input from folks that had survived a suicide attempt or families that had lost someone to suicide, or families of survivors, folks that have kind of been there, just to kind of make sure, hey, I understand your research says this, but I also like the reviewing of things like this by people that have actually experienced it, if that makes sense.
I would hope on the two-pager that I'm reading from, there are partner organizations. The group that did it was Save, SAVE, out of Minneapolis, and the list of partner organizations is long and strong.
Okay.
American Association of Suicidality, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. It goes down to NAMI, New York State Psychiatric Institute. I mean, the Poynter Institute, their Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Association. So hopefully, along the lines, and you know this from what we do, a lot of the
Yes.
people that volunteer for these organizations or work for these organizations have been impacted
Yeah.
by suicides.
I just sometimes feel like as a society we're so worried about a word that we use or a thing, and it gets lost. Everything else kind of I've been in
Yeah.
situations where I'm afraid to say the wrong thing and then I lose, it's really hard to I don't know, when you
Oh,
said trigger warning, when we said commit, which I understand the whole premise, don't get me wrong, but sometimes when I don't like to correct people when they do it, because it's a sticky situation anyway, and things you're talking about are tough subjects. And then, me coming, well, don't use this word, we have to use this, and I feel like it kind
it's
of
hard.
dilutes. Yeah. Just want to throw that out there. Just
You're
we're
spot on,
we're
Jesse.
ranting today, right? On a Monday?
It's Rant Monday, and it's hard because check this out. You can be an old guy like me talking on college campuses. I could
Oh
say the
dear.
wrong thing at a moment's notice. Yeah, I've worked on it, I practice and all this stuff, but I'll be in front of a crowd of all kinds of people, and I'll just say, "Hey, you guys were better than this," and like, "We're not guys."
Oh
Just an
dear. Oh
it's
dear.
just an
Oh dear.
expression, like, ah. And then
Yes,
I
yes.
then I then I walk by and I see two girls talking, and the other girl calls the other girl dude. I'm like, hold on, I've seen that happen. So
I've
sometimes our
done
heads
that.
spin. Yeah. See, so you stole that from
Okay,
us. So
back
it's
to
all
our
good.
list. Sorry, I went off
Back
on
to
a
the
rant here,
list.
but it's important for
All
sure.
right. Oversimplifying or speculating on the reason for the suicide. And they say instead, describe suicide warnings, risk factors, mental illness, relationship that give suicide context. I guess you don't say, hey, he's had financial issues and he died. Like, I guess, and we all should do this, even the public, is let's not speculate on as
Right.
to why.
You
It
don't know
just,
what's going on in someone's inside. You can see a person, it may not match at all with what's going on inside.
especially our online profiles, man, it's all Skittles and unicorns over there. And we know that's not true. There's been some uh, influencers who look like they had the greatest life ever, and we lost them.
Recently.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to
like,
suicide. And
yeah.
you're like, look at their profile. They're here, they're there, they're everywhere. But you can't see between the toughest 6 to 8 inches is between our ears. You can't see in there
I mean,
what's going on.
who's gonna put a picture of themselves at their worst moment on well, some people may, but we're always I posted this weekend of my grandchildren here, and we were having the best time. I didn't show them the breakdowns and the temper tantrums and the the timeout moments and,
Yeah, you going in
the
the bathroom
falls.
going, I wish they'd all
Yeah.
leave.
No, you don't see that because that's not what we do, but hey, everybody, we're all dealing with something. I don't care how perfect their social media or famous people, especially. You see these things. The other day I saw one and they were talking about, this person, was really struggling, and people often think, well, they're rich, they're famous, they have this, that. How could they be struggling? Easy, almost easier than us. I have
Mental
nothing to
illness.
prove.
Yeah, and mental illness doesn't give a crap about your bank
No, it
account.
doesn't. That's right.
Do not sensationalize in details in the headline of story. That's what you should avoid. Do not sensationalize it. That's a tough word on a Monday. Sensationalize. Do not. What they recommend, report on the death using facts and language that are sensitive to a grieving family.
Thank you. That might be the best one yet.
Home run right there. That's a good one. Consider the people that are reading it. You post a picture of somebody in the road. Remember, there's a dad, a mom, a sister, brother. Cut the crap. Another one, they really try to trip me up today with some of these big words here on a Monday.
Mm.
Glamorizing or romanticizing suicide. Don't do it. Avoid
This
it.
is not Romeo and Juliet, folks.
That's a classic.
Yeah.
That's a classic where you made it so beautiful. Oh, they loved each other so much. Well, guess what? They're both gone. And as a guy who got divorced and had love again, it gets better. It gets better. I'm telling you.
I mean, have you seen the sensationalizing about this young man in December that shot in cold blood the gentleman that worked for United Healthcare?
Oh,
They
dear.
literally have some type of play or musical about it.
He murdered a man.
It's like all of again goes back to what we need to see and what we're as humans nowadays, the more horrific the better. And I'm not sure where that came from.
Yeah, don't romanticize it. And here's what they recommend. Instead, provide context and facts to counter perceptions that the suicide was tied to heroism, honor, or loyalty to an individual or group. We now keep it individualized and stay within their head and think about the family. The one thing they try to do, and a couple years ago I read this, was like if somebody died in a school setting and they had these tribute lockers, they go to the locker and make a tribute. Somebody walking by would go, "Wow, that would be cool if I had one of those."
Mm,
And I get it.
yeah.
A young, impressionable mind would go, like, no one sees me, but if I'm gone, maybe they'll decorate my locker, which was the recommendation was, yeah, do something, but keep it short. Like, you know, it's going to get decorated, but next week it's going to be gone. And I get it. You have to honor. It's a tricky balance for these administrators. It's so hard how to honor a person and then not glamorize it.
Yes.
So for all you school folks out there, I feel you. You got to walk that line. One thing you got to do though when you're walking the line is you got to acknowledge it. A lot of schools sometimes, or organizations, I'm picking on schools, but organizations will just not talk about it at all.
Which is almost just as bad because there's shame in that, like hiding. Maybe it's because we've experienced it. There may be people that haven't and we're like or totally disagree with us, but I think that just makes it even more, you know, bad sounding if you just don't. When we see people and we know how they died, and that's their business, but they won't say the word. And I've heard many people say, "Yeah, my family says we're not allowed to talk about it."
Yeah, it's not a lot, shush. We actually had I was involved in a group one time. It was a financial group out of Chicago. I don't know how they got my name or number, but they said we lost a trader or one of our partners to suicide, and we're going to do it was during COVID, so we're going to do a happy hour in a weird way. We're going to do um, a toast to the individual, but we'd like you to lead it off and tell your story, go over risk factors, warning signs, talk about why we have to stay in touch. And at the end of my talk, everybody, like, was like, you know, raised a glass or a Pepsi or whatever you had in your hand. And if you felt compelled to talk about the person, you were allowed to. So the owner of the company or the broker in charge went first, and he just held up a glass. I don't know what was in it. It could be coffee, whatever. He just said, I miss this guy dearly. It was really a tribute. It wasn't like, here's to, Phil, maybe ride off in the sunset. No, it was like, and then he said to his employees, if anyone's hurting like this, please come to me. But they ran right at it. And there was I was dealing with HR on the call, before and after, and we went over what I was going to talk about and how the flow was going to go. And later on, she came up to me through the debrief afterwards, and she said, there was a guy who found out, one of his good friends found out that we were doing this. He was super mad
Hmm.
because one, he's grieving, and then two, he lost a buddy. He was like, why are we doing this? She goes, I'm going to cry thinking about this. He goes, I just got off the phone with him, and he was so glad that we did that. Like he went full circle. So there's a way to treat, talk about it and then pay honor to the person.
Mm-hmm.
Back to this call again. This was a young guy and he had family. They didn't tell me the wife was on the call.
Mm.
They invited her. And it was kind of like almost like a virtual funeral in a sense when you go to a wake or something, because we couldn't do it. It was COVID. We couldn't get there. Or if you're long distance, if you have a company worldwide, you can't do it. So it actually worked. I'm telling you, it worked. And I was honored to be a part of it. I had a small part, tell my story and why we got to look out for each other. And then when the owner took over and just everyone went around, and then someone else would speak up. And even the guy that didn't want to do it spoke up. And at the end, we said, all right, everybody have a great day is the best you can. But remember, we're here for you. It was crazy good. And I was super nervous going into it because it was a virtual postvention. And when he said we're going to honor the guy and have like when they didn't call it happy hour, but they're going to toast him or some way, pay honor. And everyone did have like a little drink or whatever. During the day, it's probably, you know, iced tea or coffee or something. But they held up their glass and said, this is the bill. And I miss him so much, and I thought he was one of the best traders we had. It was really well done, but it could
So
have
they
went
remembered
sideways.
him as being a good human being.
That's
Yeah,
it.
that's so that is probably one of the most important things personally to me, because I've told you, and I've probably said it many times here, that I spent years, because my dad died in '92, about 30 years, thinking my dad was such a horrible person, because at that time and ongoing, suicide was, I felt like you were almost looked at as like a murderer. And I thought my dad was this horrible person. And then I went through that great training with NAMI and learned how to remember who he was and see it as the disease that it is, mental illness. And it changed me and it helped me on my path of healing. And when people ask me, what do I do? How do I do this? The first thing they've got to do is to not see that person as a bad person. And that's harder than people think it is.
Yeah, it's back to that analogy. I think we talked about it. The last page in the book doesn't ruin the whole book.
Right.
Yeah, it had a really lousy ending, but guess what? In the beginning, middle, and towards the end was pretty darn good. So don't glamorize or romanticize it. That was that. Here's another one, which is interesting. Overstating the problem. This is what you to avoid. You don't overstate the problem of suicide by using descriptors like epidemic or skyrocketing. Research the best available data and use the words like increase or rise. There's been an increase. I get that. Sensationalizing epidemic. We're epidemic proportion. We lose roughly 50,000 people a year out of a country of 330 million. We're better than that. It should be zero. One is too many. But we actually have some data sets where the 15 to 24-year-olds, their suicide rate went down. You don't hear much about that, but they went down. I think because those kids are talking about it. We talked about that as well.
Mhm.
But research the best available data and use words like increase or rise. And sometimes they do sensationalize this. They'll take a population with a small suicide rate and it went up. So instead of having 3, they now have 6, and they'll say it doubled. But you got to remember that the initial number was low. To this day, the worst offenders of suicide to this day are still 80% are men, middle-aged men. To this day, they're the worst. Now, I'll go on a rant about that. And I lost 2 young guys. My brothers are in their 20s. I'll go on a rant about that, Jessica, and I'll walk out of the room, and some guy will tell me about his teenage daughter. Heck, I'm wearing a bracelet on my wrist right now for a 12-year-old girl. All the rants can go out the window with one, but just make sure you have the right data. And there's people out there that have data. I think the American Association of Suicidology has a suicide fact page you could print off. It's a downloadable. You can know state by state. You can look at the demographics, age, all that stuff. Just know the facts. And I think you and I know the fact is one sucks. One
But we
sucks.
also know, which is the message we have of hope, and to your point, earlier, is there is hope for us that are still left behind. There's pain, just like any loss, but there's hope, and there are people like us that feel called to do this work. And it's because we've been able to manage it head on. Everybody has their own, some people I see that lose someone, they're moving right along in a year or two, still dealing with things. Some of us are, struggling 30 years later.
Big time. It's
Yeah.
always with you. It's always with you.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
There's great people doing great work. And not to diminish this research. Sometimes things, everybody has their own opinions. You know what they say about opinions.
Oh, yeah. It's a family show.
Yep. Yep.
They're like rectums. Everyone has them and they all stink, right?
Yep, yep, yep. So, I mean, that's the truth, but it's just talking about it.
But if they done right, media reports can result in help seeking when they include helpful resources and messages of hope and recovery. That's one of the bullet points on this. And I totally agree with that. If they do it right, and this is an interesting one. We're on the last bullet point of avoid. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're on the ninth one. And this is interesting. Avoid prominent placement of stories related to a suicide death in print or in a newscast. That's hard to do.
Again, why? I would love to know. Tell me more. Tell me more.
And then it says,
Open-minded.
I'll give you the instead. I'll give you the converse of that would
Okay.
be, they say, place a print article inside the paper or magazine or later in a newscast. They need to change that one.
I don't like it.
I don't
It's
like it either.
again,
It is what it is.
you wouldn't do it if someone died, of any other means. Why this?
I get it. It's a public health issue, but it needs to be reported. And if it's someone prominent and like, Robin Williams, you're going to put that one on page 14? Hell no. It impacted a lot of us.
Because you know what's gonna happen if you do that. It's all speculation, and all the things
Yeah.
they tell you not to do are gonna happen unless you come out, here are the facts, this is what happened, and then there's no speculation, no stories, no gossip.
And then go back to Robin Williams, they did report about his death, and we were worried about contagion. That was a big time. But then his wife came out and gave us the final word. She wrote a nice essay about his Lewy body's dementia. He was sick.
Mhm.
His brain was seriously sick. Like your heart is seriously sick. You have a heart attack, or you have heart failure. Your kidneys fail. They're gone. His brain was failing him. That's a fact. So we had that discussion. They said, "Wow, that sucks. What really happened? Let's go to the family." And they were after the grief. She goes, "This is what happened," and put it all to rest. Like, this brain health is important. Poor Robin's brain was deteriorating, right? And he knew it. He absolutely knew it. And I feel bad for the guy,
I
but I
do too.
thank him for all the wonderful laughs he gave us.
Remember who he was,
Oh yeah,
Mort from, or what was
Mork
Mork and
from Mork.
Mindy. That's my first memory of him, and then Dead Poets Society was such a great book.
Could you imagine being a director of that guy, like trying to tell him what to do in a scene?
No, and people when I'm talking about gossip, immediately people are like, "Well, that just shows, there's so many comedians, and you don't know what's going on inside of their head, and sometimes they use laughter to as their medication." And I'm like, yeah, a lot of us do that, but here's what really happened.
What was the
Let's
movie? Well, this is how when you get older, you always like know half the facts. But what was the movie he was in with Matt Damon? How do you
where
like them
How Them
apples?
Apples. Yes, yes. Oh my gosh, I cannot remember.
Where he was a
um
brilliant mind, Matt Damon.
um Now you know what I gotta do. Google,
Google it.
folks.
Well, you Google it and I'll set up the story.
Google.
You find out that movie. There's a scene in the movie again, and you'll have to watch it closely, where Robin Williams ad-libbed and the cameraman started laughing and the camera shakes. It's when they're in a therapy office and they're talking about the dog.
Goodwill Hunting.
Goodwill Hunting. How did I not know that?
I know.
Goodwill Hunting. There's a scene in there. This is the brilliance of Robin Williams. Now we're remembering him. And they're ad-libbing, and he starts talking about the dog passing gas. That wasn't in the script. He's just doing it. And Matt Damon's laughter is sincere because he's laughing on the couch, but you'll see the camera shake. The cameraman, it wasn't in the script, starts laughing, and they decided to keep it in there, but it looks like there's a little mini earthquake. You got to look real closely, but it
I
goes like that.
will. I may watch it
Oh,
today. I'm on vacation. I can lay on my couch and watch whatever I want,
that's it. That's it. And it's hot, by the way. We're doing this in the summer. Have you noticed the
Yes.
dog days? The other day, I took 2 naps during the day. 2 naps, like 3 showers. I was outside working, got up early, went outside, came back in. I'm like exhausted. 10 o'clock, I took a nap, went back outside, was doing stuff. We have a little garden out there, totally drenched, played tennis, stupid move. Um, totally drenched, took another shower. I took like 3 showers that day, but I did 2 naps. That's a good day. 3 showers and 2 naps, and still go to bed at like 9 o'clock.
I had a great day yesterday. One thing I like to do, just because I love nature, my father loved nature, I love nature, it's just healing to me. Like, get outside, breathe
Oh,
fresh
yeah.
air, hot or not, walk through the grass with your shoes off. I swear I read somewhere that that's so therapeutic, and I agree with it.
There's a term for that. It's called grounding.
Really? Yes, we talked about that. I knew
Oh, yeah.
somewhere. I love it. And so yesterday we took our neighbors up the river. So I live on Lake Murray, and you can go up the river, and it goes from the lake and what it normally looks like, and then all of a sudden you're literally in this river.
A tight
Um,
area, right?
yeah, and it's so beautiful, and the birds, and the trees, and the just air, all the wildlife. It just brings so much peace to me, and we did that yesterday, and I just smiled the whole time, and that's where I probably feel the closest to my dad when I go do that. But we had a really good time, and just great company, and just it was just a wonderful day.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you. That's good for the soul. And look at where we started this podcast. And for the listener, it's just another fine production, but we had a little production issue this morning. It's Monday after a holiday, and the computer glitched a little bit. We're like, unbelievable. Here we go. And look at us ending on a high note. We
Yeah.
talked about the reporting on suicide. I'll hold it up if you can't see it, but you should go on reporting on suicide. I hope it's .org. It is reportingonsuicide.org. You could download the 2-pager. It's easy. I'm kind of mad at myself because I printed it in color, and color ink is a lot of money, but that's what we do for the podcast. We spend. We love our audience. We just spent.
We
Hey,
do.
by the way,
Go
speaking
ahead.
of nature, have you noticed my hat, by the way?
Yes, the Camo Hat Club. Love the camo.
Camouflage. When you're speaking about nature, this, by the way, this is no fancy, this is no off the shelf kind of hat here. This is a Richardson Original 112 Truckers hat, bragging a little bit about the good people at Richardson Sports and this beautiful camo, mossy oak. We don't mess around at Half a Sorrow. It's a
Mossy
Richardson
Oak is
hat.
fancy. It's fancy.
Mossy oak is a big name in the camo business, and that's where our hat is because men tend to camouflage their emotions. Look at that. We'll talk about that one day, but I had my meeting like that tie-in. You like that little segue?
That was pretty.
Marketing genius. We had our meeting the other day. Thursday, we had our camo hat club. We meet the first of the month. That'll be another episode. I'll talk about that because it's really, I love that day. And Jessica, I love this day, the day after a holiday and a podcast with you and computer issues. I'm still going to love this day.
Because
You
we're
cool with
here.
that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up. That was the reporting on suicide episode.
Dennis, I want to make a comment before we end today.
Uh-oh.
It's July the what, 7th? And something was on my heart all morning watching about the floods in Texas, guys. Many of you hear it. They're talking about the psychological pain that some of these children are going to go through that have
Oh,
survived. And just, pray for those people and those children and the families because, man, that just breaks my heart in two. We're talking about death by suicide, but any death is loss and it really can impact your mental health in terrible ways, especially when it's just such a tragedy. We've read this before about natural disasters. People
hmm.
think it's got to be something else that causes mental health challenges. Natural disasters, especially for children, can really hurt for a very, very long time. So I just keep them in your heart and in your mind. And man, that's just terrible. Terrible.
You're spot on there, Jessica. Thank you for calling that to our attention. We've been watching the news all weekend about that. Your mental health can be determined by internal factors, your blood, your chemistry, and your genetic, and external. And that's a big external right there. That was a big one watching it this weekend as the numbers just kept going up and up and up.
Still
And
going up, they say. Still can't find some and pictures and just, they reported it with dignity. For
well,
sure. So,
gosh,
I was thinking about the things you read and watching, remembering those people and what great people they were. And it just is sad. It's a sad time right now.
sad. And it's what we talk about on this podcast. We talk about grief no matter where it came from. We tend to emphasize grief from a suicide, but a loss is lost, gone is gone, and it just sucks. That's why it is a tough subject.
Yes.
And by the way, I want to do a live show again on It's a Tough Subject. So keep thinking about that. If you have a city out there, if you're listening and your city can benefit from a live talk, It's a Tough Subject, we'll take the show on the road. We did it here in Greenville, South Carolina. We brought local nonprofits in to help share their story. It was unbelievable night. And I'm looking to do it more and more because communities like the one in Texas will be hurting for certain, hurting for certain, as they say. And if we could help, just shine a light on some of this stuff. Say the word. Dennis Gillan. It's Dennis at halfasour.org if you need to get a hold of me. And go to halfasour.org, the website, if you want to book a talk. And Jessica, thank you for jumping on a vacation day.
Well, just helping folks never takes a vacation. People ask, how do you do this? How does this not become who you are? Right, Dennis? It's not
Nailed
about
it.
us. It's not about us. It's
Nailed it.
about
That's where we're,
it's our calling, folks. We're called to do this. We're called to help you. We want to help you. Dennis and I both take calls personally. It's what we're put on this earth to do. And we're thankful we get to do it.
yes, not a counselor. We always recommend therapy. If you talk
Absolutely.
to me, I'm going to recommend therapy and sobriety. People don't like to hear that at all, but it helped me out immensely. And that's a great way to end it. Grief doesn't take a holiday, nor do we. We're here for you. I'm Dennis Gillan. That's Jessica Seel. And that's another episode of It's a Tough Subject. This one we're calling Reporting on Suicide. Do it right or don't do it at all. Thank you.
Thank you.